we go.
And we're live. Are we live? What the hell's going on here? We're live. All right. Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the daily live sports betting show that we do every day at 10:30 Eastern time. Our guest today is a very special guest, Ed Feng from the Power Rank. This guy is no joke, Mike Brenner. So let's be on our A game today, okay?
Absolutely. The friend Eric that I was at the beach with doesn't even follow sports, and he knows Ed Feng's name. And,
all right.
Read one of his books.
A game. All right, Ed Feng, thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
All right, so Ed's going to comment on the national championship game, give some thoughts on the NFL playoffs, and then give some general thoughts on college basketball. And I love getting general thoughts on college basketball because that's the kind of information that can have value. You know, I mean, the value is sort of like 2 months. It probably won't have any value 2 months from now, but it can have value, you know, not just for Saturday's games, but, you know, for the value lasts for like 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes a month. All right, what do you want to start with? I guess let's start with the NFL. How about that?
Let's start with the NFL.
All right,
Absolutely.
Ed Feng, you know, we got the 4 wildcard games coming up. We got the futures odds. I believe, you know, I follow you as well. And would you agree with the statement that Atlanta is maybe being a little bit undervalued and disrespected on their futures odds right now?
Oh, absolutely. I actually have them as the second highest odds behind New England. No surprise that New England has the highest Super Bowl odds. But Atlanta's second ahead of Dallas, which I think is a little bit surprising to people. You know, in terms of the calculations I do, it's a lot of Matt Ryan in the pass offense. It's a
right.
unit by far, and they've been excellent. But when you think about it, just kind of from a subjective perspective, I mean, you got a veteran in terms of Matt Ryan leading one team, and you got a rookie in Dak Prescott leading the Dallas team. You know, you kind of look at that, you're like, all right, well, I might go with Matt Ryan. And, you know, a lot of people have kind of given me this, well, I'm not going to believe Atlanta until they win the big game, kind of the same arguments we get with Andy Reid. I don't know. I'm going to take the better team. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, I like their chances at Dallas.
All right. Another thought with that as well, Ed. You have a coach in Atlanta, Dan Quinn, that has major Super Bowl experience with Seattle. So you put that together with Matt Ryan's experience going up against Prescott. Great player, is going to be a great player, but he is not experienced at this level. The kid's got to be getting tired, and those numbers don't lie. That is a hell of an explosive offense. I'm right there with you, my man.
All right, Ed Feng, I will tell you something that about the guy you were just here talking, Mike Brenner, that might impress you a bit. We of course we've been doing a weekly NFL show all season long, and his ROI over more than 200 picks in the NFL was plus 6%, and that was including after kind of a disastrous Week 17. So not too shabby, right?
That's pretty impressive, Mike.
200 picks plus 6%, and that includes a disastrous Week 17.
Yeah, 17. I want to bounce back strong on the playoffs.
No, but including that, it was still a very impressive result. All right, yes, absolutely. All right, so and let's talk about one other thing. A lot of people wonder about this. You might have no answer for this, Ed Feng, but you know, people talk about the weather, right? And how much that impacts, you know, spreads and especially totals. And we know that there's supposed to be some frigid weather this week. And I believe in Pittsburgh and Green Bay, it might particularly affect Miami, of course, because they play in Miami. As of right now, you know, a very hot place, still above water. And, you know, it's supposed to be very frigid in Pittsburgh. And I gave the under 47 when this line opened. Now it's 45.5 or 46. Not bad, Mike Brenner, right?
Not bad at all. You beat the line movement.
Yeah.
Right there.
But what's your take on weather in general, and does that factor into these playoff games?
You know, I think if you do the analysis, it matters, but it's one of those things where it may be a little bit overrated in the sense that, like, these guys are professionals, right? I know they live in Miami, but you're going to the cold weather. You're a professional. You got all week to plan for it. And, you know, you go out there, you get into the game, and are you really thinking about the weather?
Mm-hmm. I know that I'm thinking about it, but it might affect them anyway. You know,
no doubt. Also, we got to keep this in mind. You've got a team that's collected with players from all over, you know, the United States, all over the world. All right. So the cold weather, they may have played college in Colorado or something. And like Ed just said, when push comes to shove, and it's, you know, you're talking playoffs and championship, I don't even think you feel that cold weather. I think the adrenaline just absolutely takes over.
You get warm pretty quick, right? And this is another thing. I was just listening to someone. So it's very common in Big Ten country to complain about like having to play bowls in warm weather destinations. And like they make this argument that like, you know, Big Ten teams are built on power and then, you know, the South teams are built on speed. And I was like, whoever said that power doesn't work in warm weather?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are you not going to be able to cram the ball down someone's throat just because it's degrees instead of 30? Like that stuff doesn't really make sense to me, you know? And, you know, there's probably maybe some, you know, the thing I like about that under is that, with the cold weather, there's maybe some issues of grip with the football and throwing the ball. You can't throw the ball as efficiently. But, that should be for both teams. And I don't know, they got gloves and, gecko skin and stuff these days or whatever. So, I think there's an effect, but is it probably overrated? That would be my guess.
Right. Okay, so
a factor with weather also you got to take into consideration, because of the weather, you might get some pick sixes or some fumble recoveries. You might get a backdoor cover on an over because of mistakes made. So again, just another factor to play into it.
Right. That's a great point. Yeah.
Ed, so before we move on, do you have anything to say that you think is noteworthy about the 4 wild card games coming up, spreads or totals?
Think. Well, no, man. I think 2 of these games are really interesting because of quarterback injuries, right? So Matt Moore is playing instead of Ryan Tannehill. My numbers put that at 7, but the line's at 10. I did a little bit of analysis and kind of over career numbers, like Tannehill and Moore kind of look the same. Tannehill's a little bit better completion percentage, Moore a little bit more yards per attempt, but nothing that screams that Matt Moore stinks. A lot of that was a long time ago when he was in Carolina. So, and then there's issues of scheme. But then the Derek Carr, how much does Derek Carr matter? And, a lot of kind of analysis, a lot of some stuff that other people do suggests it's about 3 points. And if you put 3 points, then, I think I have the game pretty much toss up 50-50. But 3 points, it gives the edge to Houston, which is right where the markets are at. But then you're saying Brock Osweiler is going to win a playoff game.
Right. Exactly.
So, I think that game is just it's kind of sad that either of those teams are in, especially numbers wise. I have them both as below average NFL teams, and that's with Carr.
Wow.
They have some issues on defense.
That, it's going to be for one of them their last game, and the other one it's going to be their second to last game of the season.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, they could get. I guess they supposedly could get lucky if Miami wins, and then one of them doesn't have to go to New England.
This is true.
All right. So Ed Feng's website again is thepowerrank.com. Now let's move on to the national championship game. Of course, Clemson, Alabama. Of course, they played last year. Very high scoring game. Clemson lost by 5. The line here is about 6.5 or 7. Haven't seen much movement on the spread since it opened. A little bit of bouncing around here and there, but nothing too drastic. I don't know. My sense, based on just based on first glance, is that probably, I know the line's gotten bet down, the total's gotten bet down, but probably we're going to see, decent amount of scoring again. So I would lean to the over. And as far as the spread's concerned, basically until further notice, I'm always looking at Alabama as a sizable favorite in games like these marquee games. We're playing other, similarly elite teams. Maybe you disagree with that though. Do you have anything interesting to say about the Clemson Alabama national championship game? Let's hear what he has to say, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. My number actually puts it as high as 9 for this game. But I think this is one of those cases where you really have to understand what goes into your model. So one thing that goes into it is a points-based model. So margin of victory adjusted for strength of schedule. And Alabama has had 15 non-offensive touchdowns this year. And anytime you're looking at those types of plays, the randomness plays a big role. And I'm not saying there's zero skill involved in making those types of plays, but if you want to project that they're going to get a non-offensive touchdown per game infinitely into the future based on what we've seen, I just don't think that's a reasonable thing. So I think part of that number is a little bit inflated for Alabama just because of all those scores that they've gotten this year. I would lean towards Alabama, especially if you can get it at 6.5. It's not something I love. And then, for the over-under, this Alabama defense is so good. They've been the top-ranked defense over the last 2 years. But last year, so I do this by adjusted yards per play. And so last year they would have been projected to give up about 4.3 yards to an average FBS team. And that's excellent. This year they're down to 3.9.
Wow. Okay.
So it's just, this defense is even better than it was last year. Last year I called it the Death Star. I had a kind of a Star Wars analogy. So the Death Star, and I feel like Alabama's got some more powerful Kyber Crystals going in there this year. But then, last year Deshaun Watson was the Luke Skywalker in A New Hope. He was kind of feeling out his powers, kind of surprising people with what he could do. Now I feel this year he's gotten, his training from Yoda. He's like Luke Skywalker, Return of the Jedi. So that's kind of the matchup we're looking at.
You know, he's added 25 pounds of muscle weight since Alabama saw this kid last. And in last week's game, if anybody watched it, there was a full-out blitz, and the guy hit him head on, and he just literally made about 2 steps back. The guy fell down, not Deshaun Watson. He just strolled away and threw the ball away and saved the play. Momentum and emotion play into this for me. I got a feeling this team, once this game's so freaking bad, they may make some mistakes in doing so because this is an absolute sharp defense. And anytime Lou Saban finds another angle and another reason to get a win and to get his name up there, because in my eyes, he's the best ever coach. All right, the Lane Kiffin debacle, I think will work in his favor. I think they come out and I think they get this win by 10 or more.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And so you're leaning. I mean, the total. There has been some pretty stark movement on the total, which I guess a little bit surprised me. I've also been hearing that the public is betting the under. It's crashed. It's all the way down to 50 at Pinnacle right now. So, you believe that you agree with that line movement and might still be leaning under even at 50 or 50 and a half.
You know, I don't know what to think about the total.
Give it to a straight edge thing.
Well, the number says 51. And so you're really saying, like, can Deshaun Watson have a game like he did last year? Can his offensive line protect him like they did last year, which they did? You know, I thought the craziest thing about last year's game was Clemson won the battle of the trenches.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen Alabama's offensive line get whipped that bad. Like, they got embarrassed in a couple cases there. Can they do that again? I don't know. Not to the extent that we saw last year. But, you know, Clemson really lost that game because the secondary just broke down multiple times late in the game. And I don't think that's going to happen either. So, I don't know. I mean, you know, last year I think my numbers had the under, and it just didn't feel right at all. And I don't think either play kind of feels right to me at all.
Right. All right. Well, it's an interesting game. Sounds like Ed's advanced technical analysis roughly agrees with your analysis, Mike Brenner. A lukewarm lean towards Alabama, and yours is maybe a little bit stronger, Mike Brenner. And
that's what I love when the numbers agree with guys like you that are studying this stuff. Like that's my favorite thing.
All right, so let's move on to college basketball. Of course, Ed Feng covers college basketball very in-depth as well. Does a lot of stuff with March Madness and bracketology, and in general has his own power rankings and his own general opinions and feels on which teams are a little bit undervalued, overvalued, which teams have been underperforming or overperforming. Ed Feng, let's just ask you an open-ended question. College basketball, what's the first couple of things of note that come to your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a crazy year, right? I mean, we kind of expected Duke and Kentucky to kind of be at the top, and Duke kind of looks terrible. And Coach K's gone for a month. West Virginia is actually at the top of my team rankings right now, which is probably
Bobby Huggins, baby. Yeah.
Bobby Huggins. That guy knows how to coach defenses, and I think it's one of those years. I got Butler in my top 10 right now. When we get to turning time, it's going to be one of those things where, do we go with the teams that have performed well during the regular season, or do we expect those freshmen at Duke to all of a sudden show up and Coach K comes back and then they go riding off into sunset like everyone thought this preseason?
Well, let me ask this real quick, Ed, because that show they put on last night, Grayson Allen coming back, you got Coach K going for surgery. He's going to be off the sidelines for a while. And they absolutely destroy a Georgia Tech team. I mean, absolutely make them look like a high school team. Do you think that win last night with that emotional, whatever you want to factor with Grayson Allen, does that play into your power rankings? And do you think because of that game last night, they may step up a little bit in your rankings?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they did. They're still out of the top 10. They're at 11th in my numbers, even with that game. So that kind of just shows you a little bit about the struggles that they've had. They lost to Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
that's another sneaky team too. Like, I've always liked Buzz Williams.
Yeah, very good.
They came in here to Chrysler and were down most of the game. Came out and eked out a win. I live here in Ann Arbor. Everyone's kind of freaking out about that loss, and yeah, it sucks. But I think that loss is going to look very respectable by the end of the year. And yeah, I mean, it's a new era in college basketball, like with the one and dones. And the thing that really stands out to me is that talent wins the day in basketball. You got 5 guys on that court, which is why the Coach K's of the world really go for these one and done players, because they're the talent that kind of leads you to these titles, and you don't have to look very far in the last 10 years to figure out that's guys that end up in the NBA are the ones that are leading teams to these titles. But I think that also introduces a lot of randomness into what we see over college basketball. And you can have teams like West Virginia that may not have any first round picks, looking pretty good for a large part of the season.
Yeah. So in general, right now you're vaguely high on West Virginia, Butler, and Virginia Tech. Is that accurate?
I'm not seeing Virginia Tech in my top 25 right now. I do. It's a team that I would expect. They got some votes in the preseason AP poll. Right. That's actually another trick. These preseason AP polls are pretty powerful predictors of team strength. So it's one of these factors that Nate Silver uses in his March Madness model, and you see this in college football too. So what happens is, like, these sports writers are very good judges of talent before the season starts. And then what happens during the season is that they start making moves just based on wins and losses, right? So, if Duke loses like a 2-point game to another top 10 team, they move down 5 spots, which kind of doesn't make sense because it should have been right? So why would you move them? So the final polls aren't very predictive, but the preseason polls are being pretty predictive, which is why you can't count a team like Duke out, who is preseason number 1. Yeah. Freshman talent, Grayson Allen. Who knows what that kid's going to do? Next couple games.
And I have a question for you, Ed. I'm a big Kentucky fan, and again, I cap on momentum and emotion and so forth. And Calipari, in my eyes, him and Coach K are the best coaches at the one and dones. They know how to, they just know how to corral that crew and get them to gel faster than other teams could and other coaches. I think Kentucky's really, really starting to pick up some serious momentum. What are your thoughts, and where do they sit in your power rankings?
Yeah, absolutely. They're second right now. And they were kind of waffling in the 5 to 10 range for a long time. But I mean, I have the utmost respect for Calipari. That guy knows how to coach defense.
Yes.
He gets talent, and he embraces change. And I think that's something that Coach K has done too. Like, the game is a lot different than it was 15 years ago. Calipari has just been like, I think he's often said he loves taking these guys from, kind of phenom to millionaires in the NBA. Like, that's his goal, which he stated why he will never take it, why he's not as interested in an NBA job. And, that kind of makes a traditionalist want to throw up, but that's like the world that we live in. And
sure.
He's successful because he embraces that. And I think
and he absolutely produces. There are millionaire guys coming from the squads in the NBA year in and year out. And I look for them a huge win tomorrow against Arkansas. I got a feeling this is going to get ugly.
Well, I mean, they can't really win more than they've won the last 2 games, right? I mean, those margins have been huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any teams in the top 25 that you think might be due for a bit of a fall? Might be a little bit overrated right now and overvalued on their upcoming odds?
Good question.
That's a great question.
Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing Creighton at 13th here. I don't know much about them preseason expectations talent-wise, but probably not a program that's getting the talent to be top 15 team. Probably going to catch flack for that somewhere.
But I tell you, that Coach McDermott doing a hell of a job there. He really is, and he's using what he has, and he's doing the best with it.
Yeah. Let's see if there's any other.
Just off the top of your head, if there's any. I mean, if there's no team that jumps out at you, that's fine. We're just quote unquote picking your brain here, Ed Feng.
Yeah, Minnesota's at 22nd. That seems really high for that program. I mean, either the little Patino is a genius like his dad, or he's gotten some talent, or they're overrated in the top.
Well, they started to play really great on both ends of the court at the beginning of the season. So maybe they'll regress a bit, or maybe not. That's what we're trying to figure out.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So, Ed Feng, is there anything else you'd like to share with us, or is that just about it? Should we wrap up right now?
Yeah. No. Thanks so much for having me on. I don't know what are my lasting words. I don't know. I have a new podcast called the Football Analytics Show. I've been dishing out some of the analytics that I do. Had Kate Massey of Massey Peabody on this week, and that was a lot of fun. And I know you guys give awesome audio and video content here, but if you need a little extra, check out the Football Analytics Show over on iTunes.
Would love to. And one of these days, Ed, you ought to have Pistol Pete and I on your podcast show.
Absolutely. We got to make that happen.
We get one question before we tune out. A bunch of chatter on the Akron game.
Ooh, on the Akron game tonight.
There's a bunch of chatter was going on.
Well, tonight. Well, I took Western Michigan on the opening line, and now it's down to 11 or 11 and a half. I took it at 12. Akron obviously is great, but to my eye, 12 just seemed like a few too many points, and now it's down to 11, and 11 still seems like a few too many points, although one fewer too many.
Packers at home?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my numbers put about 10-ish.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, I would have a moderate lean to Western Michigan, and I definitely, that was the one game that I kind of liked the most on tonight's card.
Interesting, because Redman said that's where the buzz was coming from.
What?
It was the one game you pointed out.
Yeah, that was the one game that I kind of liked a little bit on the overnights. All right. I guess that just about does it. Ed Feng from the Power Ranks, thanks so much. I'm sure we'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay. Bye. All right, viewers, thank you all for tuning in, and please make sure you tune in again next week, and bet responsible and beat your bookie and build that bank with SBR, because we're here to help you. We're a sharp tool, Pistol Pete, in the industry.
I think so.
You know,
yeah,
great night last night.
Oh,
good.
Oh, you mean in basketball?
Over.
Oh, yeah.
I swept a hockey board.
Really?
So, yeah,
very nice, Mike.
All right, guys, we're out of here. We'll check up with you later on. Have a great day.